When we're young, we have an amazing, positive outlook about how great life is going to be, but somewhere along the line, we forget to dream and end up settling. Join Up Dots features amazing people who refuse to give up and chose to go after their dreams. This is your blueprint for greatness. So here's your host, live from the back of his garden in the UK, David Ralph.
Good morning to you. Good morning. I hope you're all right, and welcome to another episode of Join Up Dots, episode 119. Today's guest is a man who, when it comes to talking, literally has the world at his feet. A motivational speaker, coach, and author, he speaks on his own successes of turning a $5,000 company into a $5 million company in only 5 years, how he attracted big, reputable sponsors, and more importantly, how to run a successful event. Growing up in Tehran, he first began work at the age of 19 as the first interpreter to the former Iranian President, which led to him meeting up with many presidents, head of states, prime ministers, as he travelled the world from South Africa to Malaysia, from Dubai to London, and from Paris to Tokyo. This must have been an amazing experience and, of course, an incredible learning curve to go through. So how did he limit the fears that we all have when going into room after room of high achievers and dignitaries? And how do you get to be so creative and build your own speaking brand and achieve so much success while staying true to yourself and your authentic path? Well, let's find out as we bring onto the show to start joining up some dots, the one and only Mr Sepher Tarverdian. How are you, Sepehr?
Good morning, Dave. It's a pleasure to be online with you. I'm doing very well.
Whereabouts is your home at the moment? Because as we were saying in the introduction, you literally call the globe your home, it seems. So where are you actually speaking to us from?
Well, I'm just being all around the world, but mainly in the Middle East, in Tehran and in Dubai, and also in Turkey, so all around the Middle East mainly.
And this is your sort of home by choice, is it? This is where you've now built your hub of operations?
Absolutely. Well, it's just our business is going, so we have to stay here.
So what is your path? Did you grow up in Tehran? Because from my
Yes,
So you were sort of there as a child when the issues and the sort of situation was occurring out there?
Absolutely. I was born in Tehran and raised in Tehran and still living in Tehran.
And has that been a difficult upgrowing, or were you not aware of the issues that were occurring?
Well, I think there are not any specific issues. The only thing is that Iran is now considered as some of the, emerging economies. And it was used to. Well, sanctions has been an opportunity for us because when there are sanctions, it means there is only exclusivity, and there are not foreign countries, foreign companies getting into your market, and that leaves the market open for you to really be different and creative. For instance, if I was going to do it in perhaps Japan or China, possibly millions of people have made that decision before I made the decision. And so the competition would have been tough. So sanctions was a very good opportunity for us to grow. I'm not saying that we grew because we were alone or we were exclusive or foreigners were not into the market, but also there are other reasons that we can discuss later in the talk.
But the conflicts that we all saw on the news growing up, was that a visible part of your day-to-day life?
What sort of conflicts? I'm not aware of.
Wasn't there sort of incidents and sort of civil war and battles and stuff in Tehran growing up?
Actually not. Perhaps you're talking about Iraq, which is another country, but in Iran or in Tehran, we've not had any war or civil war for a long time. Our last war was with Iraq. That was about 25 years ago, and since that time we have not had any conflict or civil war at all. But I agree with you that the Western media would portray a different world than what it is. I sometimes look at this news and hear the news, and I understand I'm living in a absolutely different other country than what is portrayed. It's a little delusive, and it's a little delusion that is done by the Western media. Absolutely safe, absolutely modern, absolutely normal and standard way of living here.
Well, that's great to hear, because I'm 44 years old and I have strong memories of seeing it on the news a lot when I was growing up. So to say that the issues that I have in my memory have gone is obviously marvellous for you. So what is a sort of a day-to-day life in Tehran and in sort of the Middle East? What would a young child do? They go off to school every day, but when they come home in the evening, I'm just guessing, but it must be so hot. Do they just sort of go indoors and stay there, or what actually would a young child be doing?
Well, a young child will, of course, be affected by the culture, by the religion, and by the style of living in the Middle East. For instance, Islam is very penetrative and is a dominant religion in the Middle East. And the way of living, it will be absolutely different than the Western cultures. The folklore and the food and the whole family culture is absolutely different than what it exists in the Western world, just like what it exists in the Asian world, in the East Far East. So a young child will be exposed to certain routines as many other children in the world. For instance, going to school, exercising, being with the family. But there are some sort of cultural differences in this part of the world as a result of the dominance of the Islam as a religion, you know.
In what way?
Well, it will dictate some types of frameworks, just like any other religion. It's less liberal than the Western countries, and it's more, rules based and laws based living in the Middle East. For instance, a child would learn that there are praying times, and it should not skip that. There are fasting times for a holy month of Ramadan, where we're staying right now. And it would learn what to eat and what not to eat, what to avoid. For instance, alcohol now plays a very significant role in the whole world, and lots of incidents are happening as a result of drunk people. Now, in the Middle East, it is illegal and it is unlawful to have it in the public, and it's actually it's an illegal thing. So that will really impact the life of a child not being exposed to it, or actually being exposed more to a family culture.
Is that a good thing? Personally, do you feel that alcohol isn't as sort of widely available as it is in the West?
Well, alcohol is a toxin anyway in your body, and getting out of the toxin is definitely a good thing. And nowadays there are not borders. If you really want to try it, you can get a plane 1 or 2 hours. You will be in another country where these things are allowed. So I would rather stay safe and in a safer community. I was talking to one of my friends who is a policeman in New Zealand, and he told me that 77% of the incidents that he has actually discovered were all resulted by the use of alcohol.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. If you come to the United Kingdom, it's quite a boozy culture, to be honest.
Yes, I understand that. I've been there before, and I can guess it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have got quite a lot on your plate, a motivational speaker, coach and author. How did this all come about from you? Because you are known as somebody who is at the top of his game as a motivational speaker, but something like that doesn't happen overnight. So how did you actually start joining up the dots and working towards that? Was that something that was always on your radar, or did just one thing lead to another to another?
Well, that was, as you said, one thing led to another thing. I have one dream that when children are born, we go and we get birth certificates of birth for them. I really hope there would be a day that we first get a coach for them from that day, so that they can really get things jotted down, get things written, and a pathway will be created for these very, very little infants and a small child. So for instance, even if you are David Beckham, or if you are Tiger Woods, world champions, you still have your own coach. You still have your own coach who will teach you what to do and what not to do, even if you're on top of the game. And that is key. Because as whoever you want to be, you still want someone more experienced off the page, not being, emotionally affected, to show you logically where the way is, as you said, joining up the dots or connecting the dots. And that's what it is. I mean, having a right coach. I was talking to a friend of mine, Nick Hollick. He's been the first private astronaut in the world And he's written all his goals, even going into this space at the age 7 under the influence of a coach. So it is absolutely essential to have a coach at whatever stage of life you are.
So why do you think as humans, since I've been doing this job, literally every single person that I've spoken to has got either a coach or a mentor, and it's not surprising that they're successful. One, that I'm talking to them, and B, that they've got a story which is, it sets them apart. But if I talk to the normal man on the street or the people that I've been working with for the last 30, 40 years, then no one has a coach or a mentor. So why is it a different kind of mindset that sets the successful or the high achievers apart?
Yes, unfortunately, I think that is a disaster, not to change, not to grow and stay where you are and not being current. Water, if it does not flow, it will really stagnate, and it will not really be a water anymore. So we are all bound to flow with the life, to flow and have a currents with the life, and with the trainings, with the learnings. Our learning curve must always be growing. I have friends that graduated from the university 10, 20 years ago, and they have PhDs, and they were fantastic in what they were learning and educating. But then they stopped it, and they don't learn anymore. They think they're doctors and they are doing one thing at their organization, but they're not learning, they're not training, they're not growing, and that's a disaster. Having a fixed mindset versus a growing mindset that you really need. And I think there are lots of things that can help us to have that flow and not to stagnate. One is really attending seminars and conferences, that what we're doing, and reading books and listening to CDs, attending and traveling the world. Traveling the world is really essential for a person who wants to learn, because meeting with different people, meeting with different cultures, different hospitalities and sort of stuff, it really helps you to learn and grow. And I cannot imagine a human to stop learning and only working, not traveling, not learning, not even teaching, because the best way to learn is to teach what you already know, and that stabilizes it. And some people are really running on the treadmill, and they just get sweat out. And then at the end of the day, they get off the treadmill and they want to be in a different place, not understanding that they are now on a treadmill. And they really need some time off to be on the business rather than in the business, because that is a very big danger, to stay in the business and get suffocated and get really drowned into things and cows and not knowing where you're going and losing the control. And learning and educating and having a coach and traveling and having some time off will really help you have a different life that you deserve if you give this chance to yourself.
So how do you give yourself time off? Because I'll be honest, I have no time off at all at the moment. My life is absolutely consumed. My balance doing this is just totally out the window. It's not there at all. So somebody like yourself, who's obviously doing amazing things in the world, how do you manage to actually step away from it and give yourself time off?
Well, it is really important that you have a plan. Every 2 or 3 months, our body really gets tired. I would say everybody, because I've been talking to lots and lots of people and see the same trend. I have been working at weekends, really non-stop, around the clock, because of the very excitement that it is inside me with the goals that I have and the passion that exists there. And so after some time, just like any other machine in the world, our body is a machine. It needs some time off, and I have it in the plan. And I keep sure I will go on holiday and really stay sometime relaxed and think about the business off the treadmill, off the running track, because your body is a machine, your brain is a machine. It needs some time off, and you have to have it planned at least every 2-3 months, not saying every 6 or 5 months. And so that is something that you need to plan and you need to be aware of, not to be drowned by the cows and the hectic days that you're facing every day.
So are you somebody who believes in the sort of phrase mini retirements, where for every sort of 2 to 3 months you actually do switch off totally, and the idea of working 45 years just so that you can stop working when you're older is a thing that we should all look at and say, no, that's not the way to do it?
Absolutely not. I mean, there is no retirement age for the lovers. Lovers are leaving with their loves. and there is no end for any love. If you have passion, success is yours. And if you don't have a passion, you definitely have a retirement age, and you're looking forward to that because you have been doing one thing for 50 years. I was recently talking to an accountant who told me that he's been accountant for 50 years, and he's been tired with that, and he's really bored with what he's got, and he's never grown. And then I was really taking him into a deep discussion and dialogue, and he ended up understanding that for the first year of being an accountant, he was an accountant, but then he repeated that same stuff for 50 years on, expecting a different result, which is exactly insanity, as Albert Einstein explained that. So you really need to be passionate and have love towards your job, and then there is no retirement age for that.
Right, this is a leading question, Sepehr, because so many people will be listening to this this conversation we're having, and they are in jobs or they're in situations that they are bored in, and they've been doing it for a few years and they don't know their option, but they keep on hearing me and they keep on hearing my guests say you've got to be passionate. How can you find that passion if you are just trapped in the 9 to 5 and you get home and your energy's low, so you just lay on the sofa before you go again to get to the weekend? How can you find that passion?
Well, if you leave your values, to be short, if you know what your values are and you leave them, then you will be passionate. But if you leave versus and opposite your values, you will always have conflict. You will be tired. You're looking forward to going back home. It's not what you like to do. You cannot be successful. You cannot generate good results. And now the question is, how can I know my values? And then the answer will be, perhaps you need a coach again. We go back to the first dialogue that we had. You need a very professional, experienced coach that knows lots of people and can really do some tests on you. But not only that, every one of us can be our own coach if we have a better self-knowledge through different techniques, through different tools, through different, books and self-help aid materials. And so if we leave our values, we will be certainly passionate because we are having a wonderful life. If you love your vocation becomes your vacation.
I like that. Say that again. I'm going to jot that one down. Go with it again.
I would say if you love your vocation will become your vacation. And you will be on traveling and trip all the time. You will have a 5-day weekend style rather than a 2-day weekend style. Because you are always enjoying your life and as much as you're enjoying your business.
Richard Branson says this thing, and I use this quite a lot because I was quite inspired by this at the early stages of doing the show. But he says, I don't consider work and play, it's just living. And that's the kind of state that we've all got to get to, isn't it, really?
Yes, we're born here to live. We're not born here to torture ourselves and to suffer because at the end of the day, we understand that we were not living our values and we were not aware of what life is about. And that's really a big miss. Nobody wants to end up there. And in fact, there was a book written by a friend of mine who's British, Martin Butler, and the Art of Being Chosen is the name of the book. And there he has interviewed with about 100 business leaders, especially in the retail industry. And the last question he was asking all these people was, what is the thing that you're really disappointed of and you wish you would have not done it? And he said, and all of them said one thing. It's amazing that about 80% of the responses were similar. And most of them said, we wish we would have started and we would have known this fact earlier. So it's really getting late early. It's really getting late early, and we have to really think deeper and twice before we pull the trigger.
I think that's so true. I was 44 years old and I'm doing this now, and I love every second of the conversations that I have, and I have those same thoughts. I think to myself, why didn't I do this 5-10 years earlier? Maybe the technology wasn't there to be able to connect across the globe as easily as we are now, but certainly I could have done other things that were more aligned to my values and passions. As you were saying, I have total agreement with that. We should start earlier.
Absolutely.
So you really did start early, though, didn't you? When I look back at your life, you was only 19, and you was the first interpreter to the former Iranian president. So how many languages could you speak at that point to become the interpreter?
I was speaking 3 languages: English, French, and Persian, or Farsi, as we say. And I could read Arabic. I could understand Arabic, but unfortunately, I could not speak very well. But anyway, I would say 3 languages for definite and 1 language half-half. And yes, I started at the age of 19 because I went for my passion. Even when I was at the school, I was always actually drowned into the English literature and the books and the translation. And I was really having an English tutor at the age of about 8. And that took me about 10 years to be very powerful in speaking English, in writing, in literature, in understanding English language. And that took me to the destination that I was hoping I will arrive at. And really, again, as you see, I started early. I was living my values. I was really passionate about what I was doing, and I was at the top of the industry as an interpreter at that age. But again, being all around the world with the political delegations and the presidents and the ministers, that took you to different places, to different exotic places, from Malaysia to India to London to Bosnia to Jordan to Germany, France, and Japan. Who met with the former Prime Minister of Japan when I was only 19, and I was doing the interpretation. I was learning this stuff, and at that time it was Prime Minister Koizumi. And I really enjoyed my time at that time. But then again, I went to an upper level, having been with different top-notch people, and having been in different seminars and conferences. That really intrigued me, that really excited me, and I started to run our own business of running conferences and seminars in the Middle East. And so again, I went to the next stage, quitting interpretation at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and getting into the event industry, which was really more exciting for me. And that again intrigued me a lot, and that was very much consistent with my values and my passion.
So when you were sort of 19 and you were reaching out in such a sort of positive way, were you unusual compared to your peers? Because you'd be unusual over here. At the age of 19, I don't think many of the sort of young adults really know what they want to do. It's few and far between. In sort of Tehran in the Middle East, are you more focused on your career than maybe we are in the West?
Well, you were in the West. I would say you're having a liberal culture, and your culture is expecting a lot of immigrants and migrants and lots of foreigners, and the teams and the organizations are more multicultural and are actually multi-talented and multilingual, and this actually plurality, this pluralism will bring in synergies. And I would say synergy is the result of pluralism. And I would suggest you should really go far beyond the NAS, because we're more closed in culture, in countries, and we are less expecting different races, or let's say different religions compared with the other parts of the world. And so in terms of business sense, as you can see in the world, you are advanced economies, you're having advanced businesses. And I would say, who make businesses? People, and the teams make businesses. And what sort of thing do we need for teams and people to be successful? I would suggest the plurality, the pluralism, having different sort of genders, the women versus men, and not having any taboos versus men or women whatsoever. And also that plurality of the team, of having a Nigerian in the team while you have a British one in the team, while you have an American one in the team. And these people are all coming to help each other and work towards one goal. That's really a formulation for success, which we less see in the Middle East.
Yeah, but still, if you get down to an individual basis, you personally, were you different from all your friends and colleagues, or were most of them on a path like you were? Because you seem to be ahead of the curve as far as I can see.
Yes, absolutely. I really don't like to talk about myself here, but When I was about 18, 19, I was devoted to my goal. I was speaking fluent English, translating it in both ways, Farsi to English, English to Farsi, and learning French as well at the same time, and understanding French language and writing it and having a good literature understanding. And that was what I was doing. And the businesses were picking me up for my talents because I was living my values. I was passionate and excited about what I was doing. And at the same time, my peers were really doing parties. They were having some fun around with different people, and they were not goal oriented. They didn't have any coach to tell them what to do. And the only thing perhaps which was a dictation of the society was to get into the university. Regardless of who you are and what you really want in life, you just need to get to the university. And many of these people and my peers were really studying fields that were inconsistent with what they really wanted and with their own values. Some of them became doctors very hardly and by pushing so hard, but because then their values were something else, were art, and they really needed to become a pianist. Now they're doctors because the society, the family, the people around dictated their own values to these people. And in that sense, I was different with the people of my own age at that time.
Because one of the tagline of the show is connecting our past to build our future. And one of the themes that has come out, and you've said it quite nicely, that it's all to do with your values, your personal values, that most people should effectively be doing the things that they loved doing when they were a small child. So when they were a small child, if they loved playing the piano, they should look for a way of being able to play the piano as a living. If they loved laying on the floor, drawing or reading, they should try to find ways of maybe blogging or writing books or something. But there comes a path where responsibilities take over and they forget the things that were uniquely them. They forgot their passions, their values, as you say, and they go into zones which is kind of almost expected of them. Careers that kind of look good on paper but are not them. And that's just going to exhaust you, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that's the biggest danger in front of any single of us.
Why do you think we all do this then? Why do you think that it's not just the United Kingdom, it's not America, it's the globe. Everyone that I speak to will pretty much say they first started on a path that wasn't actually theirs. It was a path that maybe they thought their parents would like them to do, or their grandparents, or their peer group, but it wasn't what they wanted to do. And I hold my hand up as well, and I say my first sort of 20 years was doing jobs that wasn't me. And why did I do that? I don't know, and I wish I could go back and sort of erase it, but I didn't. I just went into that because it was kind of expected of me. I didn't have that knowledge in my brain to actually say, no, hang on, I've only got one life, I should be doing my own thing. Very different from you, where you were focused at such an early age to do that thing. Why do you think that is such a sort of global problem?
Yes, unfortunately, this sentence, this phrase always excites me. It says, if you do what you've always been doing, you get what you've always been receiving and getting. And if you really want something new, you really need to get out of your comfort zone. You really need to do different things, different crazy things, absolutely crazy things, and then different crazy, weird results might happen. Some of them are great, some of them are not, but then you're different and people will pay attention to you, will pay for it, and you're more excited because you have created something. In fact, there was one interpretation of the word God, which is generator, operator, destroyer. I mean, these three letters of God stand for generator, operator, destroyer. And it was said that every human can do that. Every human can generate. Every human can operate. Every human can demolish and destroy. And we are all gods of ourselves. If we know that we can generate, and if we do not generate knowledge, generate buildings, generate whatsoever, generate books, generate wisdom, generate good people. And if we do not operate, if we do not destroy the bad habits, destroy the nonsense, then we are not living the God of ourselves. And this is generator, operator, destroyer. We need to be that. And if we need to get something new, we need to do new things. Insanity is doing what you've always been doing and expecting different results. This dilemma that you just went through, I have a story, a true story for it. There was a bank and the CEO asked the janitors to dye the benches in the yard. And then after the benches were dyed and they were colorful, they were green, there's a CEO of the bank, that famous bank, asked the janitors to really take care of the benches so that nobody sits on them. And then it took about 2-3 days that the janitors were in the garden when the CEO was changed. The board of directors decided to replace the CEO of the bank, and the new CEO came to office, and he found out that there are janitors taking care of the benches. And he decided to keep this trend. And for 23 years, there were janitors taking care of benches. Can you imagine that? It means what was done by someone else is going to happen by me because there was a reason before that this was done, so I should keep it, which is nonsense, which means that we need to always review our systems of life, review our machines, review our everything, all the trends around us, and to revitalize them and to give new life to them by really double questioning and really double thinking about whatsoever exists around us.
Do you need to have courage, though, Sepher, to be able to do that? Because I think a lot of people would struggle to shake up the status quo if they're in a business or they're in a situation that they don't like.
Absolutely. Courage is key. Without courage, you cannot really face the obstacles. There was one other sentence that really intrigued me at the time, and that was, any success brings you a gift of a barrier. So you need to overcome that barrier to get to that success. So any success comes with a gift of barrier and an obstacle. And when you see that obstacle, it means there is a gift around. It means there is a gift waiting for you. And we will all be tested at all the stages of our lives with difficulties and hardship. And we are meant to have that. And that's history. I mean, you read the history, every big man, every great leader became a great leader because of hardships and sufferings. But then there was that blue sky and the beautiful breeze of the wind and the beautiful blue color of the ocean, and all the calmness came. So I would suggest that courage is key once you know that you are going to be tested, and once you know that for every success there is a barrier on the way.
So what we're doing now, we're creating a blueprint for success here. So what we're saying to the listeners out there, that first of all, they've got to look inside themselves and they've really got to think about their values, and those values will lead to their passions. They've obviously got to take action and they've got to be creative, but it's having that faith, that trust, that belief in themselves, and we might be able to say courage, to be able to see that obstacle and know that by knocking that down or climbing over it or even just walking around it to find a better way, there's a chance of better life beyond that. Is that what we're saying?
Absolutely correct. You have really well explained the formulation here.
Well, I'm going to play somebody who I think has explained it even better. And this is a speech that we play on the show every day. And this is Steve Jobs, who talks about that same logic, taking faith, having trust, whether you call it intuition or karma, to actually move forward. So I'm going to play his words now, and then I'm going to ask what your opinion on those and whether they're true to your life and whether they're relevant to the world as a whole. This is Steve Jobs.
Thank you.
Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever, because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart even when it leads you off the well-worn path, and that will make all the difference.
What do you feel about those words? Are they true?
Absolutely true. Well, many people are saying do not look at backward and always look forward. I would say look backward, learn the lessons, and move forward, just like driving a car. You have a small mirror to look back. That's a rear mirror. But then you have a huge window in front of you to look forward. So what Steve Jobs, the latest Steve Jobs, was saying here is look backward through that small mirror to connect the dots, learn the lessons, and try to predict the future. You cannot predict the future without having any knowledge from the past and the history. History repeats itself and history has proven that it repeats itself. And for those who have a good wisdom and knowledge, for those who have connected the dots, history will not surprise them in the future.
But you don't even have to have the knowledge. This is just something that I want to get out as well. If you've got a passion, there is so much ability to research. You know, I think the most powerful words in life really is how to. If you type in how to into Google, you can find out, or at least get a head start to most things that you want to achieve. Certainly with this show, I had no idea how to get a show up and running other than wanting to do this. And I'm sure with yourself and your speaking career and the fact that you've gone through creating companies and running successful events, when the first thought comes into your head, you don't know how to do it, but you just take that faith, don't you? You try one thing, and through incremental gains, you start to make momentum.
Absolutely. Here is, as you said, courage is key. And I would always have 3 questions in front of me when I am facing with a dilemma and an obstacle. The question number 1 I review when I'm going through hardship and I want to pick up the courage is, do I have to have a victim attitude or a victor attitude? This is a key thing. Am I born as a victim or am I born as a victor? Who will make the decision about that? It's about me. When it is come to happen, it's all about me. So I never want to have a victim attitude. The second thing I always repeat with myself and review is, how important is that in 6 months' time, in 1 year time? In most cases, I would suggest in 99% of the cases, the response is not at all, nothing. Nothing. After even 3 months or 5 months, that important is nothing. When you want to get angry, when something really matters for you and it's really a transient thing, you are stuck in the traffic, you're so angry, these questions, how important it is for me in 6 months' time, really calms you down and gives you the courage to be patient. And then the third thing I review is that there is no failure in life, only a lesson learned. Only a lesson learned. And so if I fail often, and I learn more, and I learn more, and I create better things, and I can really pick up more courage. My fear goes away as a result of repetition, as a result of moving forward into the fear, into the difficulty. I'll embrace the difficulty, and I try to learn something new, and so fear will go away. These are some key phrases and issues. But again, you need to know this stuff. You need to be trained. You need to have a coach. Somebody needs to transfer this great wisdom and knowledge into you.
So do you have things that you look back and go, yes, that was a big failure? Or are you somebody, you know, that really sort of just moves on from the failures and just classes them as experiences?
No, really, I built up upon those failures and made successes. So I wouldn't again say they were failures. They were just my mistakes to learn the right way and to choose the right way. And I was lucky enough that my mistakes were really coming to the surface quite fast and in a short time. And so I could really spot the right way and make the right decision. So I would suggest failures have happened for me, just like for anyone else, perhaps. And they all have been helpful. They were all there to teach me a lesson.
And are there trends now that you can spot? Because obviously, I think if you get every failure out the way, you're ultimately going to get success. But as you have progressed and you've become more experienced, can you spot these potential failures before they occur, which you couldn't have done when you were younger?
Yes, absolutely, because you become more experienced, although it becomes much harder nowadays with the very high speed of competition, with the very high speed of changes, with the one thing stays constant only in the world today, and that is change. Everything else really changes, and change remains constant. It always happens every day, and even with a higher speed than ever before. And so that makes decision making tougher. Our body was created if you just review our ancestors were going to the jungles to hunt that deer, to hunt that pig, and bring it home and sit with the family and have a good dinner and relax the rest of the time until tomorrow. Now that is how our body was made. Our body can tolerate only a certain amount of stress and pressure, and the task was really, really clear. Now in the workplace, We start 8 in the morning. We're supposed to finish at 5, 6 p.m., but then we go on until 9, 10 p.m., and we sleep with lots of stress and with lots of thoughts and nightmares into our brain, into our mind, and really having a difficulty sleeping, and again waking up in the morning, and that means triple or double pressure on our body and brain, and our body cannot tolerate that. So there is going to be a further gap, a gap between decision making, the right way of decision making, good healthy style of life, and also, the problems and the business and the goals. And the gap is getting widened every day because stresses are more, changes are more, the speed is higher, and competition is tougher. Competitions are really getting bigger and smarter. And so you see pressures and stress is even getting higher and higher.
But I would also say that because of the internet, because of the World Wide Web, competition in many ways has become more spread out. You can create markets within markets and become very successful. And this is what I try to say to my listeners as well. If they've got an idea and they start researching it and they see that somebody else is doing something similar, that is proof of concept. That is a good idea to actually do something but put their own spin onto it, because the world and the marketplace is so big that they shouldn't be fearful of competitors. They should be appreciative that there are other people out there already paving the way.
Absolutely true. For every crisis, there is a definite opportunity there. And Chinese have one simple word for crisis and the same word for opportunity. And I always believe that for every crisis, there is a definite opportunity. The competition is a double-edged sword. It can kill you or it can help you. And the decision is yours.
Where do you see your focus going now? Because, as I was saying, if somebody was in a bar and they say, what do you do for a living? With the motivational speaker, the coach, the author, the building the companies and all that kind of thing, what do you describe yourself? Do you describe yourself as an entrepreneur, or do you focus it down into just one of those key areas?
Yes, I have learned a very important lesson in life only recently, unfortunately a bit late than it was supposed to be, and that is giving is getting. If you want to receive, you need to get. You need to open your fist so that people can take stuff from it and put the stuff in it. If you just close your fist, there is nothing going and nothing coming in. And if you help others, others will come to help you. And that's a key lesson I learned. The more I give, the more I get. One of the things I've been doing in the past 10 years was teaching and training lots of entrepreneurs and managers through our seminars and conferences by inviting some of the most famous entrepreneurs and speakers in the world, from the US, from Canada, from Australia, from the UK and South Africa mainly. These 5 countries, they're English speakers. They have really good associations of businessmen and, very advanced industries there. And I have invited very top people. And they were all training and teaching lots of entrepreneurs in the Middle East. And lives were created. Businesses were made. And I am really happy with that. That's perhaps why I'm happy with my life, because I have helped others. But that's not enough. I have gained money from those conferences, but after age 50, perhaps, this has happened to many people. They wake up one day in the morning and they see that they have worked for 30 years, 25 years. They have a car, they have a house, they have a family, they have a village, they have a villa, they have a lot of stuff financially, and they've been successful. But then they wake up one day in the morning and they say, okay, so what? So what? I mean, I've gained all this stuff, but so what? That's 2 words. So what? Then they understand that they are not here for success. They are here to be significant, one level higher. And by being significant is helping others grow and having a better life. I am happy for having done that in the sense of teaching and training and educating lots and lots of people. But at the same time, the thing is, I need to do this more. I need to do it in different other ways. So my goal is to make one of the best and most famous charities in the Middle East, where all people not only can feed their stomach, but they can also feed their brain. and also to make this existing operation that we have, which are the seminars, more concrete and more enhanced by developing it, by having more buildings, by having more teachers, more entrepreneurs, more successful people teaching more, and to double and triple the existing amount of teachings, and then helping others grow. If you help others grow, it comes back to you in all ways. If others grow, then perhaps the circles grow, the teams grow, organizations grow, societies grow, and guess who will really benefit from that? It's you.
Right, but nail it down for me. A cute girl walks up to you and says to you, "What do you do for a living?" How do you describe yourself?
I would say, well, I take care of myself first, because if I don't have something in me, I cannot give it out. So I really have to love myself. I would not consider that as selfishness. I would consider that as a way to love others, because you cannot give love to others if you don't have love inside. I would suggest I need to love myself. I really need to work on myself, to develop myself, to progress myself, to deepen my wisdom, and then just transfer it to others through different relationships. Because I have this phrase that the bigger your network, the bigger your net worth. And if I really want to have a bigger net worth, I really need to have a bigger network. So one of the things I do as a routine is networking, attending every circles, every gatherings, every event, every possible thing. I try to be there, because chance is defined as this. Chance means to be present at the right places at the right times with the right relationships. So it is not coincident. It is something planned once you do how you do it. And so I describe myself, my life in fact, as a way that I really focus on loving myself and try to transfer it to others through relationships by being in different places to really increase the possibility of the occurrence of chance.
That's going to be a very big business card you've got there.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we do on Join Up Dots, we talk about the big dot, the moment in your life that you can look back and you can go, yes, that's really when my path started to realise itself to me, and I started walking in the direction that I wanted. You have seemed to have had so many dots that have led up. Has there been a big dot in your life when you can look back on it and go, yes, because of that, I am now here?
Absolutely. I think everybody has had it. And I don't know what to say. Perhaps that has been really a destiny, because really that phone call, that one encounter, that 1 second that you were going to miss, really created a great revolution in your life. And it has happened to anyone. And again, I would suggest, if you have faith, that can happen to you. But there have been other people saying that they have been faithful enough but not getting any revolutionary turnaround points. And so that big dot existed in my life. I believe it existed in the lives of many successful people and leaders. And that phone call, that encounter, that 1 second, that one accident really changed their path of lives and got them into a new, whole, beautiful level of life.
It is amazing, isn't it, that life can be so constructed. We can write down all our goals, we can channel our energies, but more often than not, it's a kind of fluke that just occurs that really sets it all alight.
Yes, really. Cannot agree more than this with you. Yeah, absolutely.
Right, okay, this is almost the end of the show. I don't really want this show to end because you've been fascinating to talk to, but this is the bit that we call the sermon on the mic, and this is when I send you back in time to have a one-on-one with the younger Sepher. And if you could go back in time, what age would you speak to? Would it be the 19-year-old as the first interpreter? Would it be the guy who starts setting up his first successful event? Or would it be a few weeks ago? So I'm going to play the music, and when it fades out, you're up, and this is the sermon on the mic. Ooh, ah, ooh,
here we go with the best bit of the show, the sermon on the mic, the sermon on the mic. Ooh, ah, ooh.
would say, Sepehr, just try to understand what your talent is, what your passion is, what your excitement is about. Try to understand what really intrigues you and what pumps you up to go out of your bed and do. You have to know it as early as possible, and then you will be courageous enough. Don't be timid. Do not scare. Have faith. Pick up your coach, whoever that person is. Is it your dad? Is it your mom? Is it your friend? Is it your uncle? Whoever he is, trust him, listen to him, and try to use the help of others, but do not forget your gut, your insight, your intuition that is made for you to be a huge successful person, a greatly successful person. And always remember, Sepehr, that there is a hero in the heart of every person waiting to arise. Try to really waken him up. Try to pick up the courage. Find out what you love in life and do it more often and often.
And I hope the young Sepehr was listening to that, because that was inspirational. How can people connect with you?
I'm on Facebook. If they search Sepher Tarverdian, they can find me on Facebook. I'm also on LinkedIn, and my website is sepehrspeaks.com.
Well, it's been an absolute delight having you on the show today. Thank you so much for spending time with us today, joining up those dots of your life. And please come back again when you have more dots to join up, because I do believe that by joining up those dots and connecting our past is the best way to build our futures. Sepher Tarverdian, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
David doesn't want you to become a faded version of the brilliant self you were once to become. So he's put together an amazing guide for you called the 8 Pieces of Advice that every successful entrepreneur practices, including the 2 that changed his life. Head over to joinupdots.com to download this amazing guide for free, and we'll see you tomorrow on Join Up Dots.